So, my presentation isn't playing ball with the screen, so you're just going to have to look at my ugly mug. And I have a few videos as well, but I'm going to break it up with that. So just bear with me now and I'll get this started. Okay, so an introduction to me for anybody that doesn't know me. I graduated in Athlone in 1996, I believe. The course was Design Communications. 48 of us started that course. I think it was 18 finished, and 3 of us got distinctions. It was probably the hardest 3 years of my life. It was very, very difficult, and after that, I actually went and did carpentry for a year. I was so burnt out. I ended up breaking a bone in my hand. About a year into that, the money was great. I actually, at that point, I would say if I hadn't broken a bone in my hand, I wouldn't be standing here in front of you as a designer. But I broke a bone in my hand, and I was living in Dublin at the time, and a friend of mine, who had been a year or 2 ahead of me in college, he was in one of the top probably 4 below-the-line agencies in Dublin at the time. It was called Watermark. So they were looking for a creative, or a junior designer at the time, and he asked me what I was doing, and I said, well, I'm a carpenter. And he said, would you like to join us? And I jumped at the chance. So for me, right from the start, I was blessed. You know, it was a fantastic introduction for me into the design world. And I was lucky, I guess, in that throughout my whole career, and I won't go into all of that, I was lucky enough to, I suppose, move from a below-the-line marketing agency. I worked in a pure graphic design agency, worked freelance with a few above-the-line agencies, so I kind of got to see the whole sphere. And I guess when I was a student, and that's one thing I guess that's important for students to understand, is, especially in relation to graphic design, that they understand that there are an awful lot of kind of areas that they can fall into. And I definitely advise anybody who is training to be a designer to try and get work experience and try and mix it up, just so you know from the start kind of what area you want to be in. So yeah, as regards the history of Design West, I guess I'll just show you this, or it'll rather tell you a little bit more about us. Okay, so again, that's probably just saved me about 10 minutes of just trying to explain to you exactly what it is we do. So yeah, and again, I've slightly modified the subject, the title of what I was supposed to be speaking here today, because to be honest, I think that would have taken more than just me, and it would have taken a day-long conversation to discuss the whole changing trends in design. So I just thought it would be much more beneficial for me maybe to talk about my experiences of having and running a design business in the west of Ireland, and how that has kind of changed for me, and how maybe trends have changed for me throughout my years as a designer. So yeah, the challenges. Well, for anybody that doesn't know, and I'm sure Sheena, Patrick and Michelle will agree, being a graphic designer is very tough, or being a creative is tough. So I kind of use an analogy sometimes. If you have 5 pieces of art in a room, and you've got 5 people looking at that piece of art, it's very unlikely that the 5 people looking at that piece of art are going to like the same 5 pieces. They're all going to, like different pieces. So I guess the job of a designer, a lot of the time, is to try and make the 5 people like one piece. So for me personally, I guess if I was to give anybody who's in training to be a creative, the most important tool you're going to have at your disposal, it actually isn't graphic design, because I'm not standing here as a great graphic designer. I'm standing here as a person who's worked with great graphic designers over the years. But again, I think the most important tool at your disposal is actually communication. And it's the ability to be able to have a conversation and to be able to sell your work to people who may not necessarily like what they see at first. I always remember when we were dealing with Mayo County Council, when we were designing the Mayo.ie brand. I think we were dealing with maybe 16 different people at the time. So it was a tough job to try and get 16 different people to come in behind the brand that we ended up developing. But we got there, and I think the reason we got there is because we were able to communicate, the brand and what it meant. So, and I think, on reflection, that's one of the best brands that we've ever developed. So I'm just flicking through my little points here, through communication. Yeah, and again, I guess, following on from the communication, one of the most important things is to be able to sell your ideas in person, not on paper. So again, I have found over the years in dealing with clients, if you're selling or you're sending them a concept, you're always better to try and either meet them in person or, pick up the phone and have a conversation with them. Always very important. So as I said, if anybody was to ask me that the most important thing that you would have in your armory as a designer or being creative is the ability to communicate. Okay, so what I might just show you is just to show you guys maybe just some of our work, because again, a lot of you wouldn't know me or our work, so I'll just fly through it. So there's the Mayo.ie brand. That was a fantastic project. Sligo Tourism. We just launched that website before Christmas. You have an exclusive. This is the Roscommon Tourism Brand Identity Guidelines, and I got exclusive permission off the client to show you guys that today. It hasn't officially been launched. Yeah, and I suppose we would be much more. We're very much a pure graphic design agency. We're not so much an ad agency, we're not a marketing agency, so everything that I'm saying to you here is really, it's from a pure graphic design point of view. So yeah, and there's some work there as well from, Motion Monsters in the US, which I'll go into in a few minutes. So just giving you a kind of cross-section of all of the different type of work we do. Yeah, so again, in terms of advice, I don't know if there's anybody else here who is training to be a creative. Is there anybody in the audience who is hoping to be a designer? Graphic designer? No? No? Okay, right, we've won. Yeah, so I guess, again, just discussing my learnings over the years, if you had have asked me when I moved my business down, I set up my business in 2005 in Dublin, and I moved down right at the start of the recession. I think in in 2008, and you know, back then, I guess in 2005, if you'd asked me, you know, my dream was to have a big agency and have 15 people working for me, maybe 20. And you know, that's where I wanted. But I have most certainly learned over the years that you know, being realistic about how you scale your business is one of the only ways that you're going to keep a creative business going in the west of Ireland. I have definitely learned, you know, in the past I've had full-time staff, you know, and they've come and gone, and at the moment I just have a core of I have a lady who helps me with social media, I have a couple of people who come in and out of freelance, but I manage the business, and I have a core of people, of trusted people that I've worked with for probably 10 years plus. So they roll in and roll out as required, and that really is the only way that I've managed to keep my business going down here, you know. So I guess the advice there is to be you know, be fluid, have a great network of people around you, know exactly what they do, and know when to push that work to them. And again, apologies I don't have this on screen for you. Social media, I'm not going to go into social media now, because I know I caught the back end of Derek's conversation earlier on, and we heard a little bit there as well about social media, so I'm not going to go into that. Social media, for me, I would really only be looking at it from a creative point of view anyway. So social media for us is very important because we're creative and we're very visual, and I think it suits us. But as I said, apart from that, I don't think I'm going to dip into it because it's kind of been covered in topics earlier on. So yeah, as I said, in terms of advice for any people who are looking to go into the creative world, I would say most certainly get your work experience. You know, try and get out there and get as much work experience as you can. I found in the last couple of years with students, and I don't want to be too generic about it, but again, the thing that worries me most is actually their ability to communicate. One thing I always insist, if I get any interns into the studio, is I will actually make them answer the phone. You know, so that they're learning all of the time to communicate. And it's actually, you know, again, and this is my own personal view, it can be a little bit worrying. And you know, as I said, it's a talent as well, and it's something that definitely can be developed. I had a young lad in there about a year and a half ago, and when he came in, he was like this. Every morning he was looking down. If he had to talk to a client, I mean, he literally went white, you know. But by the time he left me, he was looking up, he was chatting, and he was able to pick up a phone and have a conversation with a client. So again, and I think that works across the board just in life, you know. If you're not able to stand up and look a person in the eye and smile, I think you're in trouble, you know. So again, for me, I think that is one of the main reasons that I've been able to keep my little business afloat over the years. And that's my ability to maybe, I hope so, is being able to communicate with people and being able to, you know, relay ideas, have conversations, and sell our work. So yeah, in terms of more advice, I'd say in quiet times, you know, if you're in business, and I guess this is probably across the board as well, what I have found is, you know, there have been times in the past when maybe things have been quiet and I've gone for a walk or I've done whatever, but I use those times now to focus on just developing our website, or, you know, if we need to get a radio ad done, work on a radio ad, and just kind of looking at it on how I can kind of use that time to develop my business. Luckily, there hasn't been a lot of time for that recently. I've been trying to update our website for the last year, and hopefully now in the next couple of months we'll get it done. But thankfully we've been very busy. But yeah, as I said, so that would be my advice: is to use the quiet times to kind of work on, you know, your website, updating it, and making sure that your work is kind of, you know, it's all there and up to date. Okay, so in terms of Motion Monsters, so I think it was actually 2013. I started looking at maybe, you know, expanding what we were doing, and I looked at Galway, and Galway was, to me at the time, was a little bit flooded, you know. I looked at Dublin, completely flooded, and by flooded I mean just in terms of, you know, graphic designers and agencies and blah blah blah. So I had and have quite a few friends in New York, quite a lot of them in business, and in New Jersey as well. So I decided at the time, and a lot of those guys in business, they had have very successful businesses. I mean, one of them, they have a construction company, and their turnover was, I don't know, 140 or 50 million a year, and their website was, I don't know, it was probably designed it was probably designed when websites were first designed. They had one page, some little clip art of a truck on it, and that was it. And as I said, this was a company that was, you know, creating very bespoke art galleries for high-end clients in New York. So I guess that was a bit of a light bulb moment for me, and I looked then across the board, and you know, I saw a lot of other opportunities for the likes of me, and especially being Irish. So my main focus in the States has been working, for the most part, with Irish American businesses. We have done, we did a campaign for, I don't know how well any of you guys know America, but there's a company called, well, Amazon have bought them recently, Whole Foods. So we did a campaign in 2018 with Whole Foods. We did a motion graphic video for a company called Unreal Candy in conjunction with Whole Foods, and that for me was an amazing project. I got to see our motion video played in Times Square, so for me that was just a huge, you know, moment in my design career. Just, you know, to have brought our work from here and to be able to see it in Times Square. So yeah, as I said, that was it. I decided to take the business from here and do what we do here and do it over there. Probably one of the most difficult things I ever did was getting the work visa. I mean, there was literally that much paper. I tried every avenue there was, and in the end I went for what's called the investment visa. It's an E2 visa, so it took an awful lot of work. But it worked out in the end. I was very lucky that there was 3 other individuals that were going for it along with me, and I thought that their businesses were much more viable than mine, but only 2 of the 4 of us, and I was one of them. So, listen, it's been fantastic. In terms of the differences, very interesting actually for me, and again, I'm speaking from the perspective of a creative. I guess the differences between clients here and clients in America is that when you're dealing with clients here, you know, you're designing, you're developing a website, or you're doing a brand for them. The clients here are very much focused on how that, you know, what the end result will be and how that can generate them income and how that can bring them in more work. But what I found with a lot of the American clients is they actually just want something that makes them look good. And I don't mean that in a very, you know, I don't mean it in a bad way, but the difference is that a lot of them have, their businesses they're going so well, they have, you know, they have a huge turnover, so they're not actually under pressure to have a website or a creative or social media or whatever it is to bring them in the work. They just, I mean, I've heard that, I just want to look good. That's all they'll say. So again, you know, we've taken quite a few companies, again, cross-section of businesses that we would work with over there, bars, quite a lot of construction companies. We did a brand last year for a company called Navilis, which is actually Sullivan backwards. They'd probably be one of the top 2 construction companies in New York, and again, their website and brand was atrocious. I had a real hard time convincing, you know, the owner of the company that his brand was horrible. It was an old globe with horrible text over it, and I think there was about probably 40 copies of the same brand on Google if you searched under different companies. But that was a really interesting project. That company would have been one of the main contractors involved in the rebuilding of the Freedom Towers. So, and I think there's a new building going up there now. It's very famous, number 1 Vanderbilt. So they'd be the main contractor there. So again, it was fantastic to work with a company like those. We did a brand, we did a website, we did a motion graphic. you know, and all of the associated stuff. So, yeah, so then in terms of, you know, I hope you're kind of seeing a transition here, and there very much has been for me in the business. So more recently then, whilst in New York, I have friends that own a sound recording studio in Times Square. I was there one day, we were just listening to some artist who was recording their music, and I met a guy who owned a studio, a really busy studio in New York called Bravo Media. And really struck it off with this guy, and he asked me to come down to the studio and have a look at his work. So I did that, and I was absolutely blown away by what they do. So, and again, just reeling back, what we do, as I said, we create brands with websites, and motion graphics are one of my great loves as a creative. I love them, which you can see from maybe the few bits and pieces. I like to relay our work as much as possible in video, because I just think it's much more interesting than you know, than working off text. So this company, what they do is projection mapping. So that's what it's called. It's motion video that is used to, well, you can project it onto anything. It's used for brand launches, promotions, you know, product launches, whatever. So we've started, I've kind of teamed up with those guys. That's where my studio is now in New York when I go over, and we've started working with a couple of clients here as well, doing projection mapping. So I'll show you that. That's actually a jet. What you're seeing there is a projection hitting the jet. So yeah, there it is. That's pretty much us start to finish. I hope it was semi-interesting. As I said, I just wanted to relay just, you know, what it's been like from start to where we are now. So yeah, that's it. Thank you very much for listening.